Good morning, everybody, and welcome. I hope and trust you're all well. Hello, Corin. I thought you were away. Lorenda, Windy, tell me about it. That's why my nose is so blocked. I think we had one day of no wind, and now I'm all blocked up again. So I sound all blocked up. We're just waiting for Ishmael to join us, because this is a topic that he knows something about and I know nothing about. I'm in learning mode today. Um, Hello, Sonia, Robin, Lorenda, Lizette, Corin, Beatrix, Tamara. Where is our friend Ishmael? I just sent not reminders, a link to everybody. So we just have to give him a moment to join us. How is everybody? Who's new? Who's joining us for the first time this morning on an Inner Circle Live? Anybody joining us for the first time? I think we had a number of new members, but I think most of them joined us last time. Oopsie, let me do. Are you back already, Corin? Oh, I'm sorry. The Facebook must have given me the late notification that you were away. Let me just message Ishmael.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning. I was just about to message you because I thought on this topic, I don't know what I'm going to make up if you don't arrive because
Oh, okay. Then, in that case, I need to leave again.
Hi,
Good
Bob.
luck.
Hi, Bob. No, because this is the topic. Good morning, everybody. Hello. This is Ishmael Mohammed from MML Attorneys Inc. Well, actually, the director. I'm not sure if you're also the CEO. Everybody wants to be a CEO these days. I was for a while. Then I realized, but I'm the only O in this business. So why must I be CEO? I'm just the O. Good morning, everybody. So Ishmael Mohammed from MML Attorneys Inc. Now, Ishmael, last time we talked about short-term rentals versus long-term rentals.
Hmm.
And I've been in suspense now for the last 2 weeks because just before you logged off, you threw out this thing. I mean, the conversation happened naturally about people talking about, but they're getting a lot of inquiries about people who want to rent to run an Airbnb, which, in other words, to sublet. And I don't know if I'm old, but generally what we've been taught, well, generally our impression is lease says no subletting, so no subletting.
Hmm.
Then we came up with this, and you dangled this little carrot right at the end, and I've been waiting in eager anticipation for all the answers because you said that when people are renting out to like an Airbnb host, let's call them that,
Hmm.
or I don't know, a Lekker Slaap host or whatever they are. Essentially, our client is renting out on a long-term basis, so they're getting the security, the regularity, all
Hmm.
of the things that they are wanting. The other person is taking the risk, probably got more than one of these things. I know this is a big business because with working
Hmm.
with SAP and having spoken to Sapin a lot, one of the big things I'd never even heard about let to let. I mean, I know there's this guy, I can't remember his name, Rustin, something like that, somewhere here in Cape Town, and his whole
Hmm.
business model is built on this.
Hmm.
And his business model is I make a fortune from rentals without owning a property. I mean, that's essentially the business model.
Mm,
He's got hundreds of them around Cape Town. Now, we of course think or I think Cape Town. I mean, I know that there's people that want to go to Joburg too. I'm not quite sure why. Shame, bless them. They normally want to be close to the airport. But I mean, every area has got Airbnb
mm,
possibilities. It's not only about coming to the seaside. People go to different places for
mm.
various. So you dangled this carrot and you said, "Oh, but wait, it might be to the owner's advantage." And you mentioned the thing that we love to hear about, oh, maybe you're not even, maybe you legally not needing to worry about that CPA nonsense.
Not exactly.
No, that's what you said. I find a
No,
record.
no, Sean. What I said was maybe you don't have to worry about pi.
Oh, pie. Sorry,
Yes.
pie. I'm sorry. You're
Mm.
quite right. Of course,
The
you're
thing
right.
that we usually can never get out of, we might be able to get out of in very particular circumstances when looking at situations like this.
Yeah, so we might not need to. Sorry, you're right. Well, of course you're right. I mean, accept you're right. It was pi. So the booties
Mm.
might be able to go and just self-evict. I don't think that's what you mean.
Well,
No,
now hold on. Let's
I'm,
not take it too far now.
I'm going to hand over to you now. Tell us how to
Okay.
get out of pi. I should have
Yeah.
advertised that. How to contract out of pi.
No, as I say, it's a very particular circumstance if you are trying to get out of pi. Now, when I say particular, very exclusive, there's a very limited. So I don't want anyone to have the impression that this can sort of be applied everywhere, that there's some magical contractual term that we can put in and suddenly pi no longer applies to the lease
Oh, we
agreement.
wish.
That's not the situation. That's not what I'm trying to put out there. Let's just put that out of our minds to start with. So,
Sorry, can I maybe go
yeah.
back to step one?
Mm,
So we get approached. Oh, well, we're busy trying to. We'll get to the. Sorry, we'll keep people
mm,
dangling because we need to get minutes on our video now. So we are advertising a property on a long-term let normal residential lease.
mm,
This is what we're thinking. Okay, TPN lease, and we get calls from people saying, "I'd like to rent it, but I want to
mm,
permission to sublet it on a short-term basis."
mm.
The first question is my general lease terms. Okay,
Mm.
so my first impression is no. But now you said it could be to the landlord's advantage and it
Yes.
could actually minimize their risk. And so
Mm.
just to go back to where we ended off last time,
Yes.
the landlord can potentially charge a higher deposit
Mhm.
because they're renting to a business. And when I say a business, I'm talking about a going concern. I'm not talking about necessarily a PTY limited.
Mm.
It could be mom and pop that are doing this, or just
Mm.
mom, just pop. Um, so they could charge a higher percentage. They will be letting out. We generally, well, I don't know. Let's say we've got an empty flat.
Mm.
Those people are going to bring their furniture, or they're going to hire their furniture. But the things that I have been thinking about is that for them to run their Airbnb style property there, point number one, we're going to have to change the lease terms because the subletting
Mm.
term is normally in there. Maybe we can talk about what sort of terms we should put in there.
Mm.
Um, because we've obviously got to cover our landlord, but they're going to bring their own property in, their own furniture in. Of course, they're going to maintain this property probably flipping well.
Mm.
Unlike some other tenants who, all green fingers until they move in there, then all the plants frack, no?
Mm.
But these people have to because they've got to advertise it, they've got to get guests, they've got to make sure it's perfect. In terms of looking after the property, I would imagine there's a big plus there.
Mm. 100%. Sean, to start off with this conversation, the first thing that I always want to bring up to the client is subletting is not unlawful. Subletting is not against the Rental Housing Act or the Consumer
Mm.
Protection Act or any other legislation or common law. There is absolutely nothing in law that prevents subletting.
just traditionally been in leases.
It's in the lease. It is a contractual term, and it has over the years become a standard contractual term.
And
And I
that's the
agree with the clause.
yeah,
I
and I
do. I
think in our
personally
head,
agree with the clause
I think in
because
our heads
that,
that's where we're at
yes,
because we've been learning this all the time. It's like,
mm,
no, no, the lawyers put subletting in there. It must be a no-no.
exactly. Right.
But
So
by
again,
saying,
as I say, I agree with the clause because it is a protection for the landlord to prevent that subletting.
mm,
Right? But over the years, it's become such a norm that people think it's a standard requirement that it just
yes,
must be no subletting. To the point that I've had clients come to me and say, I've got a tenant in my property and he's subletting. I said, okay, where's your lease? No, we're on a verbal lease. He says, how do we know you can't sublet? No, but it's not allowed. Where? Who says it's not allowed? If you are letting your property for 10,000 Rand a month on a verbal lease and you getting your 10,000 Rand a month, and that tenant now has brought in somebody else. Now, I'm not speaking about bringing in
no, it's
17
when they
people
bring
and
in
overcrowding and all of that.
no, it's when they bring in the rest of the country.
That's a different story, right?
And the
I'm
person
saying,
who puts the lights off. Yeah.
yeah, it's a two-bedroom. You've got one tenant, verbal lease, paying you 10,000 Rand a month. He brings in his friend from wherever he comes in, and the friend's paying him 10,000 Rand a month.
Clever, man.
Yeah, good for him. He's essentially not paying any
Yeah.
rental, right?
Yeah.
And it's nothing unlawful. It's not a breach of the terms of the lease because there aren't any terms to the lease that we can
Oh,
show
that,
because
were
it's
you talking
verbal.
where there was a verbal, so there's not a
Verbal. I'm speaking
specific
about
term,
verbal.
and there isn't a
Yes,
term that comes from the Rental Housing Act or any other
exactly.
legislation. It's
Exactly.
a lease only term that
Correct.
the
Now,
contract.
when you have your standard leases,
Mm.
whether it be a lease drafted by me, some other attorney, TPN, whoever, the lease is more than likely going to have the clause no subletting.
Yes.
Sometimes it says no subletting, other times no subletting without the landlord's written permission, blah, blah,
Yes.
blah. Right?
Yes.
As I say, I completely agree with the clause because you don't want to allow your tenant to just let anybody in. That's why we have written leases. It's to protect the interest of the landlord and the tenant. But remember, it's the landlord's lease. So it's really about, for us as the drafters of the lease, about protecting our landlords. So we
Mm.
put that clause in.
Yes.
On that very basis, nothing stops us from taking that clause out. And once
Mm.
we remove the clause, suddenly subletting becomes an open door. Now
And
your
that
tenant can
clause,
go and sublease to anybody.
yeah, no, so that clause is not generally linked to any of the other clauses. It's not one of those
No,
linked
no,
clauses,
that clause stands
not
on its own.
related to. So that one would
So
be a simple take out,
yeah,
but it's
simply
not
take
a
it out,
dangerous situation.
and now subletting is allowed.
But now the whole of a little small country or large one can come.
Exactly. Now, am I saying go and remove this clause from the lease? No, 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 I'm not
Good.
saying that. I'm saying we can remove it if we need to. And the topic of this morning is one of the few circumstances that we say now we will remove the clause. But in removing the clause, we put in a new clause.
Mm,
Now, we're not going to go through what exactly the clause is going to look like, but we'll give a general outline of what this clause will
yeah.
be all about. Now, this clause will specifically say the tenant is allowed to sublet and is allowed to sublet on a short-term basis. That
Mm,
is important because if we want to be able to control this process as well as possible, we need to allow the tenant this ability, but we also need to contain how much the tenant is able to do. Now, I've had conversations with colleagues that do say to me, what they say to the landlord is, leave the non-subletting clause in. Leave the clause in, you may not sublet without the written permission of the landlord. And
okay.
if the tenant finds somebody to sublet, get that written permission for that amount of time, and then move on and move on and move on and move on. I'm saying, oh, that's wonderful from a legalities point of view. From a practical point of view, that makes absolutely no sense. Because if
So
your conversation with your tenant is the tenant is going to be doing short-term subletting, Airbnb, Lekker Booking.com, whatever the case may be, they might have somebody every 3 days. So every 3 days, they need to get the landlord's written permission. It becomes a nightmare.
yeah,
It
no,
becomes an absolute nightmare.
it
So
can't be that
we
every
don't do
booking we
that.
have to approve.
Exactly, which is why I'm saying no, not to that. Cape Town is a very particular sort of market, right? As Sean, as you could everybody's wanting to come to Cape Town. Everybody wants to be close to the sea and the mountain and.
And there's
Right?
evidently
Wonderful place to be.
10,000 of these places.
There
I'm not,
are
I'm not saying
hundreds
that
of
they're all
thousands.
sublet, but there's thousands. I don't know. I read
Yes,
something briefly over the weekend. Um, Now, of course, you can say there's the moralistic thing about we should stop the subletting so that we can help the normal people coming to the city. But frankly, that's not my business. Okay?
that's the
Business
economist's
is to help a landlord.
conversation. That's not the lawyer's conversation. That's for the economist. Let them discuss that.
But we
We
need to
work with the
somehow,
world as it is.
I don't know how we're going to do this because now Sally comes to me
Hmm,
and Sally says, I want to sublet as an Airbnb. And we just go and make a clause and we just cross out that clause. We say, yeah, you can sublet.
hmm.
Hi, Paul. And Sally opens a homeless shelter and a soup kitchen.
That
I
is
mean,
a problem.
yes, but see,
Yes,
she's subletting.
yes.
So we got to
But
stop. Nothing
yes,
against
that
the
is
homeless,
why.
ladies and gentlemen. Nothing against the homeless. We've just so you know, we've got free homeless places that the city runs. Very nice, nice little cages for your stuff. So let's not even go to the homeless. The
Yeah,
city's got places for that. But I mean, you
yes.
don't want that.
No, we don't want that.
So we've got
But
to control it
that's
to
why I'm
this
saying
sub.
what we will do is we limit the subletting. So, for example, what you would say is you would say the tenant is allowed to do short-term subletting.
Mhm.
In Cape Town, we have a particular bylaw to this. Municipal regulations allow short-term letting no longer than 30 days. Okay.
Ah,
But that's only in Cape Town. I do not know about the rest of the country. Cape
but that
Town,
might
you
be
have
like the
30
Thai
days.
visa. You go over the border, you come back. You go out the
Yeah,
door,
you
you come.
go, if you leave and you
Continue.
come back, you leave on day 29 and you come back, you get another 30 days,
But
right?
wait, I want to go back to another fundamental
Mm.
thing. Robin is subletting can be dangerous, though it's almost impossible to get them out as they are not a party to the lease. Robin, I have an idea that that is a urban legend because if the subletting is legal, the
Mm.
landlord, I believe, Ishmael, I don't know, maybe I'm just acting a fool. The landlord, the subletter is there at the behest of a contractually with the letter. The landlord can kick the letter out and they all got to go together because it isn't it you evicting that person and anybody
Mm.
who has title
All
under
those
them
holding title under.
under them. So they're
Yes.
all gone. So I think Robin, let's dispel that. It's
Mm.
no different from anything when they've got a flatmate, a girlfriend, a boyfriend, a
Mm.
them friend, he, they, they, what we.
Yeah.
And
Okay, Sean, let's just touch on that very quickly before we move on. I just want because it's fresh
no,
in
because I
everybody's
want us
mind
to
now.
talk about the things that scare us about subletting. Why have we
Yes,
been?
and this is obviously one of those issues.
Yes,
Let's go back to our verbal lease. Right? Our verbal lease was subletting. We might not know who the sublet is
that's the
because
thing.
the tenant just let his say, come on, friend, come inside, pay me 10 grand a month, and let's call it a day. Right? We don't know who this person is. Okay. Now, when we evict, as Sean, as you correctly say, we evict the tenant and all those holding title under. The more information we have about this person, the more we can add them into our application just to solidify the case. But if we don't know who they are because we were never informed of who they are and we were never put in any information about this person, we evict the tenant and all those holding title under. Okay, which means
Yes.
our eviction runs without an issue.
Because there
Okay.
used to be all these articles in the U and the Huisgenoot about, I managed to get that one out, but they have to leave the other one behind.
No,
That,
no, no, absolutely
am I
nothing
right
like
that
that.
that was just a stupid
The
Garner
only
variety plan? They
time
didn't
when
keep
that
that
happens, when that happens, and I've seen this before, which is why we have to be very careful on launching applications like this.
one.
If you have two tenants and you send a notice to vacate, a valid notice to vacate to one of them, you cancel their right to occupation, you can evict them. You still have the other one.
Those are the stories that have happened.
Those are the story. But again, that's because you have two tenants, not a tenant and a subtenant. You have two tenants,
Ah,
and you only take action against one.
ah.
Because remember, the other thing is, as the owner to the property, you have a real right to the property, which means you can use the property as you see fit. You can live
Yeah.
in the property, you can let it stand empty, you can use it for storage, you can do anything you want with the property. You are also allowed to let the property, which
Mm-hmm.
means you limit your own right. So you say to the tenant, I give you the right to live in the property, which means you are limiting your ability to live in the property.
That's when we have the normal
Okay.
subletting clause
Normal.
in
This
there.
is
I give
absolutely
you
completely
the right,
normal.
no subletting.
Yes. So, no, we haven't touched it. Let's just leave this. The normal rental. I
Oh, okay,
am
sir.
giving my house to you, Sean. You pay me X amount a month. You can live in my house. That
Yes.
gives you the right to live in my house and have certain powers over my house. If I
Mm-hmm.
don't limit the subletting, you have the right to sublet. You sign a lease with Bronwyn. Okay. You have the power to sign a lease with Bronwyn
Mm.
because you hold some of my rights as the landlord. I've given the right to you. You've given the right to Bronwyn. If I remove the right from you, you no longer have the power to give it to Bronwyn and her right automatically falls away.
Okay.
So the eviction works against everybody that's there. Okay.
Okay.
But I am going to also say doing the short term letting does come at slightly higher risk than the normal renting. But it also comes at higher reward because you will make more money. All things being equal, proper market, you will make more money.
Before you go there, just
Hmm.
just definition of sublet. If a friend comes to stay with me, okay, she becomes homeless or he becomes homeless, and they need someone that comes stay with me. They're not paying. Does subletting necessarily mean that there has to be an agreement and there has to be the exchange of cash, or any form of currency except cyber currency or whatever that funny hood's called?
Subletting means there must be an exchange of value.
Oh, good. So
So there must be money.
I lied correctly to my landlord.
Yes.
I've got somebody
So
staying here, but he's not paying.
correct. No. If
Wink,
they're
wink.
staying there without paying, they're not
Mm.
subletting.
Yes, that's what I thought.
But a good lease, and I will say, and the TPN lease definitely falls within this when it comes to this category over here. The tenant is not allowed to sublease, nor assign, nor cede any
Uh,
part of the lease.
yeah,
So
yeah, but
letting your friend come and live there without paying any money can be seen as a cession of lease, not a sublet. Also not
but
allowed
and
in
at
terms of the
least
lease
how could I
agreement.
see it? Oh, actually,
By just letting,
let's do a
okay,
separate session on this. There's so much.
okay.
I think I must shut up because I'm taking us all over. Robin, you can say yes. Don't keep quiet. I'll wait for
Okay,
Robin.
so let's just close that off. In
Okay.
a good lease, the tenant is the tenant, and whoever's allowed in terms of the lease to be there is allowed to be there, nobody else.
Yes.
That's a good
And we
lease.
call them occupants.
We call them occupants. Right, sorted. We've got that out of the way.
I'm going to
Now,
keep quiet. Robin can ask questions.
Sean, by all means, jump in whenever you
No,
feel
I'm taking us
necessary.
in that wrong direction because I want to get
Okay.
to the thing about them coming in, them zhuzhing the
Mm.
property up for us, then bringing the beautiful
Yes.
furniture in, and we even negotiate a weekend every month in Cape Town.
There we go. Fantastic. Right. So when we're looking at this type of subletting, that's why I say to do this is to allow the landlords access to the short-term market, which has a higher return
Yes.
without taking on that additional risk. Because as we discussed the last time, to take on the short-term letting, it's not the same as a normal long-term tenant.
And
It's
we,
a
as the agents, we
mm,
don't do dirty sheets. We don't do all sorts of things
correct,
like that.
correct.
We don't want to deal with that. So now it's almost like getting into short-term rentals, just not dealing with all the problems, and they can deal
Mm.
with that. But the
Now
landlords,
I've got a number of clients that have essentially walked away from normal long-term letting and gone completely into short-term letting. But it's
these
a
are
different
property
business
owner
model.
clients. These
Yeah,
not
the
agents.
property owner clients, some agents as well. So they do management of short-term lettings on behalf of landlords. But this
Yeah.
is all they do.
But
And I've
here we
spoken
talk,
to many of them about this, and they've said if they were to keep their long-term book, they would not be able to do a short-term book because
yes.
it's so different, and the
It's so
work
different.
just it does not meld with each other. It's a
So is
different
there a
business
way?
model completely.
Is there a model here where we can say, listen, yeah, we're open to short-term letting,
Hmm.
but we will let to the people who are going to manage the short-term let. We're going to
Yes.
negotiate a bit better for our landlord. We're going to protect them. But the one place where I'm thinking their risk is definitely lower is
Mm.
in terms of maintenance of the property. Those
Correct.
people will look at everything because when
Correct.
it must look beautiful there, but they lack a slap on the Airbnb.
Correct.
Uh,
Now,
It makes
that's where this comes in. That's today's topic, this morning's topic is about that. So for your landlord, it's pretty much the same thing.
Hmm.
I've got a tenant who has signed up with me for 2 years. I have an agent who manages that lease.
Yes. The
That's
long-term,
it.
normal,
The
traditional
long
is
term,
just taking the
24
sublet.
months, that's it. That's what is happening to my property. At the end of the month, the tenant pays 20,000 Rand. The agent takes their commission, sorts out my rates, sorts out my insurance, whatever their mandate says, and pays me the balance, and I go on holiday. That's it.
You
That's
know where
what
one of the,
happens.
you know where one of the hiccups comes in? I think I call it human jealousy. Because the landlord would be like, no, but he's going to make more money than me. And they forget what their
Yes.
purpose is of renting.
Hmm.
It's not about if he or she or they or them or whatever, even if
Hmm.
it identifies a lizard. No, it's not about whether they make more money than me. It's about
Hmm.
whether I am getting my money consistently. But the
Correct.
jealousy thing does come in.
It does come in.
And
Now,
I think,
unfortunately, there's not much that we can do about human nature.
no, we can't. We can try and clap it out, but that never works.
I don't think it works.
No, but you can say to them, look, it doesn't really matter, does
Hmm.
it? Because it's what you want. But from what you said last time, we can say, listen, yeah, my landlord is certainly open to that.
Hmm.
But we think it's a little bit more risky. So instead of 2 months deposit, we want 3 months deposit. Now remember,
Correct.
this is not mom and pop on a salary that
Hmm.
we're talking to.
Hmm.
They look at this as a business, they're emotionally disattached. And we say to them, and we're thinking that you should pay 10% more rent because,
Hmm.
your overseas people, they shower a lot, man,
Hmm.
and all that. So there's the
Hmm.
ways to renegotiate
Yes.
those terms to the benefit of our landlord.
Yes. Now, remember, when you're signing up this client, now and I've had this query from many of my landlords before, where they come to me and they say, oh, John Smith has come and he wants the right to sublet because he wants to do Airbnb. And I say, no, we are not going to lease this unit to John Smith to run Airbnb. We don't know who John Smith is. Yes,
Mm-hmm.
we have to do our FICA and we can do our credit
Mm-hmm.
checks, we can do our TPN and all of that. If John Smith wanted to live in the property, we follow that. He gets it or he doesn't get it. No subletting allowed.
Okay.
If he's saying to us, I want to run an Airbnb model through this unit, Mr. Smith, thank you for coming. Go find somebody else. We are not interested.
Can I just clarify what you're talking
Mm.
about there? You're talking about John Smith, like me, wanting to move into the unit and rent out the one bedroom as a
No, no,
investment.
no,
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 no.
no, Sean. I'm saying
You-
John Smith
You're
comes to
talking
you and
about,
he says,
I read the Sunday Times this week. Wow, I'm missing an opportunity. Let me go rent a place and create an Airbnb.
correct.
That's what you're talking
So
about.
remember, if the tenant just comes to you and he says, I would like to rent your property, he fills in the normal application form, he does credit check, everything standard.
Mm.
He doesn't have the right to sublet.
No.
If he sublets, it's a breach, we kick him out. Okay, done.
Yes.
If he comes and he's open and he says, you have a wonderful apartment on the beachfront, I would like to put it onto Airbnb, please can I have a 2-year lease? I'm saying no. We are not going to rent to John Smith. We are not going to rent to somebody who is a normal, natural person for this. To limit the
Uh,
risk to our landlords, we are saying if it's a company that has, and by this point in time, it's a company that can show at least some track record that this is what they do.
of course.
Then we are willing to say, okay, let's have the conversation. Because as you said, I mean, with your dealings with Sappin, there's one particular gentleman in Cape Town making a lot of money doing this,
A lot. A lot. I
right?
think
He's
it's
making a lot of
300.
money. But again, he is someone who's doing it through a company, his own company,
Yes.
that we can do our checks on. How many
Yes.
units is this company running at this time? If they are running 20 units, it's easy for us to be unit 21 because he's
Mm.
got a track record. The
Mm.
company itself is solid, or as solid as we can find it to be. So we limit our risk. We're not doing a credit check or background check on an individual. We are now doing a background check on a company that has a business model to do this.
Yes.
Okay, so in other words, what we're doing is we are saying we need somebody with the expertise who can do short term.
We're looking
We
for a
remain a
professional short
long-term
termer,
agent. Yes.
professional
We
short termer,
remain
track
a
record we can see.
normal, yeah, we remain a normal long-term agent. All the short-term risk is handed over to that tenant.
Yes.
You deal with the short-term guys. You deal with B&B and Airbnb and Booking.com.
And
You do
blankets
all of
hotel,
that,
young sir.
but you are our tenant, and we are going to deal with you as a normal long-term tenant. Then, yes, the lease will have to be modified for this. In other words, as I say, or as you say, we're going to take a bigger deposit. We want more rental than we would have gotten out of a normal long-term tenant. We're going to hand over more of the maintenance to our tenant. We're
Yeah.
going to say it's going to be unfurnished. You're allowed to bring in the furnishings. You can paint the walls. You can do whatever you need to do to turn the unit into something that's desirable for Airbnb. So we are handing over those rights, but all that maintenance becomes a problem. So our landlord gets to put his hands at maintenance is not my issue. So he limits his risk over there,
Mm.
but he's
Because
making
it's
more
not the
money.
best one, because if the geese are burst, we don't even have to worry about this now because they'll run out there because they're going to lose them dollars.
Exactly. So they're going to
And the
take
people
care
are
of
going to
that.
put a bad review on their Airbnb.
Exactly. And that review is not going to be against our landlord
Oh.
because our landlord's getting his 20,000 a month from his tenant. The
Mm.
review is going to be against the tenant who's running multiple units through Airbnb and so on, who's very much incentivized to keep his ranking on these platforms. He wants his
That's what I
five
was
stars.
thinking. They will make your property look more beautiful you could ever
Yes,
imagine. You know that
correct.
thing, the ads you see. This is my wife's plan after 30 years. This is what AI did in 3 years.
There we go.
Of course, you hadn't made AI moch over 30 years that she don't interested no more. But anyhow, okay, so there's that part.
Mm,
Um, we're we're going to have a specific lease for this, though, aren't we?
mm. We're going to have a
It
specific.
also, they also don't want to muck up with us because we are probably working with a company. It might be an individual, but probably a company. I prefer the company side. I don't know why. Um, and that company don't want to get blacklisted, whatever, because that means nobody else going to rent to them. They
Correct.
get a bad name in the industry. They don't want that, so they're gonna help us. They're not those people that are their next their next position is the street, so they don't really worry about their credit record. Not
Correct.
those.
You see, the other thing is where we also want to be, where we want to have these conversations with this tenant. When I say the tenant, I mean the company doing the Airbnb, right? Why we want them to be somebody who's a little bit more established
Okay.
is because
Mm,
depending on the market that they're in, I mean, if they're on the Atlantic seaboard out in Cape Town, versus being on a farm in the middle of the Karoo, it's a completely different market.
yes.
Because on the Atlantic seaboard, it's easier to speak to this agent, say, okay, what is your average occupancy for the month? And they might say, okay, we usually do about 20 days a month, split up into 2 to 3 nights per occupier. That's fantastic. That's what we want. We
Mm.
want a high turnover. If someone's saying, well, I usually take kind of more long-term tenants who are looking at about, 25 days per month. If that's the case, you might as well just continue doing long-term letting.
I
We
just want to
want the higher
clarify something.
turnover. Hmm.
Jan has made a. I don't think we've been clear enough, Ishmael.
Okay.
Somewhere we've lost things. Jan, this is no disrespect to you. Jan says, whose names do we put as the occupants? What is stopping the Airbnb company from cutting the agent out? Jan, the model we get talking about, and
Hmm.
I'm going to keep quiet now because Ishmael, I've been disturbing him so much, I probably screwed this up. We are not dealing with the Airbnb company here, Jan. We are dealing with Mr. Smith, and Mr. Smith has asked you to rent out his property for 10,000 Rand a month.
Hmm.
And Mrs. Jones came to you. Mrs. Jones, short-term rentals company, came to you, and she said, "Listen, I'd like to rent that on a long-term basis, but I want to be able, I want to be able to rent this out. I want to be able to Airbnb it. I
Hmm.
want to be able to sublet it." And our immediate reaction is, no, 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 no. That's what we're talking about here, Jan. So the lease we are dealing with is a normal residential lease for our
Hmm.
tenants. They are dealing with Airbnb. So, Jan, does that make sense? Ishmael, I'll let you
Yeah. Okay,
clarify.
let's simplify it, right? So in our normal letting, we've got the landlord, the agent, and the tenant. That's it, right? Tenant pays the agency pays the landlord. Done. What we're doing now is we adding another step onto this. So continue looking at your three parties: landlord, agent, tenant.
Mm,
Now we have a fourth party, which is our subtenant. This is our actual occupier.
mm.
So your landlord remains your landlord. He's entitled to his rental every single month. Your agent, that is you manage the property on behalf of your landlord. You
On the
take your
normal
commission.
basis,
Normal basis, normal
normal
basis.
long-term basis, nothing different to what.
Your tenant is this, let's call them the management company. The
Mm,
short-term management company is your tenant.
mm,
They must pay their rental every month. So if the rental is 10,000 Rand, they must pay their 10,000 Rand. Whether the property is occupied or not,
mm-hmm.
they must pay their 10,000 Rand.
Essentially,
They
they
have
us and then
permission.
they have to get their money in.
Yeah, they have permission to put the unit onto Airbnb, Booking.com, Lekker Slaap. on every one of those platforms, and they find occupants, short-term occupants, who pay them. What they get paid, none of our business.
Mm.
What their service charges are to Airbnb, none of our business. We do not care.
We're getting our 20K a month.
We're getting our money every month. If the place is standing completely empty because they have not marketed properly, or it doesn't look good, or there's a bad review, not our problem. We want our rental every month. Failure to pay us is a breach, and we will remove you from the property.
So point number one is we have to find people who have experience in that market to make to take the risk away from our landlord.
Yes.
And there are a lot of them out there.
Yes. So again, for everybody here today who does normal long-term letting, instead of opening a new department, instead of having to train yourselves in a completely new business model, instead of having to take on the additional work of all the short-term management, you run it as a normal long-term let. 2 years to the tenant has to go and find their own occupiers, short-term occupiers. Right. Now, let's look at if something goes wrong. The occupier, somebody comes onto booking.com or Airbnb, they book the place for 3 days. They move in, they do their payments through the platform, through Airbnb, which will pay the tenant, the company, the management, the short-term management company is the tenant.
People that are renting from us.
Yes, they get paid through Airbnb.
Mm.
If that occupier is not happy, something's not right, they couldn't get the key, the lights didn't work, the ad said that there'd be a swimming pool and there isn't a swimming pool, and they cancel and walk away, that's their problem.
Yes.
We get our rental at the end of the month because there's no link between our landlord and their short-term occupier.
Mm.
There is a break in between, which is the tenant, which has to pay us. Okay, now, let's say the tenant doesn't pay us. What do we do? The tenant doesn't pay us. We get to the first month, or let's say we're 6 months in, and now the tenant doesn't pay us. First of the month rolls around, no money in the bank. What do? We send a letter of demand, 20 days.
Okay.
As we should.
No.
Okay?
Does it have to be 20 days? Because I'm dealing with a business.
You're dealing with a business, right? If the unit is owned in a company.
Yes.
And the tenant is a company.
Yeah, in most of the cases we got mom and pop now.
Exactly. Right. So remember the CPA, if either side is a natural person, the CPA applies. So it's 20 days.
So
if, however, the unit is owned in a company and it's being let to a company, then we can do 7 days. We don't have to do 20 days. But to simplify, let's say money is not in on the first of the month, we send off our demand. Pay us or we will cancel.
The nice part here is we don't have to think, oh, show him those nice people.
They don't think anything.
No emotion.
Yeah. Number one, our tenant is a business who does not live in the property.
Yes.
They live somewhere else. This is a business to them. Number two, the actual physical occupier is going to be there maybe for 3-4 days. Then they're going to leave. They're going to take the suitcases and they're going to go. Right? So we're not putting anybody out on the street. They're going home. They're going back to Joburg. They're going back to Germany. They're going back to Australia. They're leaving.
20 business days, they're gone.
Within 20 business days. But you see, I'm not concerned about them. I'm concerned about our tenant. Because our tenant owes us money. Right? So, number one, we send off our demand. Pay us or we will cancel. They still don't pay us. Number two, we cancel. Okay?
Mm,
They don't have a lease any longer.
mm.
And we get to say to them, give us our keys back. They say no. We go to court for a commercial eviction
And
because
does that,
nobody lives in the property.
how does that work?
The commercial eviction does not involve pie. No
Mm.
pie. Only has one court date
Ah,
instead of a minimum of two as
it's
pie
a quick.
requires. You get it
Is it
quick. You
quicker?
apply now. You get your court date. In your application, you say this is a commercial eviction. You go to court, you walk in and you say to the judge, it's a commercial eviction. Nobody lives there. Nobody will be rendered homeless. It's not a household headed by a woman. It's not disabled. Pi does not apply to this at all. They just owe us money and we want the business to no longer run from our premises. Order granted, like that. 2 days, we've got our keys back in our hand.
And the landlord's hypothec, can I keep that lacquer furniture they filled it
Yes,
with
you
it?
can.
Because
Yes, you
normally
can.
every time I've sent the tenant, the sheriff, they take photo, they say nothing of value. In this
Hmm.
case, there might actually be some value.
There's going to be things of value.
So,
So, landlord's hypothec, you can hold on to that really nice furniture.
mm,
More than that, remember, as I say, to limit our risk, we only want to do this with established companies.
yes. And
So
that's
these
what we
companies
got.
have platforms, Airbnb, LiquorSlab, so on and so on and so on.
Yes.
Right. Now, the one that I like about LiquorSlab, I've only done this once, but it worked out very nicely for me,
Mm.
was we went in, we took a judgment against the company for the
The,
rental outstanding.
the
But
company that was
the
renting.
management company, our tenant, that didn't pay my landlord,
Yes.
we took a judgment against that company.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Yeah,
We
yeah.
got a commercial eviction against that company.
Mm.
3 days later, the eviction was effective and we got our keys back. We didn't have to send the sheriff to go and remove anybody because those people, we didn't even tell the occupiers what was happening because none of their business. After a few days, they left.
Yeah, they packed their suitcase.
Exactly, they left. The tenant could no longer keep the premises on the platforms, couldn't take any more bookings, which
Mm.
means they're not going to be able to run the place anyway. We've got our keys back. We had a judgment against the tenant, which I could go to Lekkerslaap and say, I'm taking a garnishee against you for the money that they owe my client. And
Oh.
Lekkerslaap had to then pay us to settle my client's debt.
Oh, wait, I'm getting more excited now because
There we go.
normally attorneys say to me, to try and sue people for money, your chances are 5%. It's going to take you,
Yes.
but don't worry, you can be on
Yes.
there for 30 years. Oh, so we can go to Lekkers. We probably can't go
Mm.
to Airbnb because they don't speak Afrikaans. But maybe we
Yeah,
can.
but hard with Airbnb because they're an international company. But with Lekkerslaap, for example, like I say, in this
Oh, so he
particular
gets a
case I'm speaking
garnishee.
about, everything sort of fell into place. It was through Lekkerslaap. We went to Lekker and said, well, you've got bookings for this unit, for this company on other units. Money is going to be flowing into the Lekkerslaap account, which will be paid to this, our tenant. So, but they owe us money. So we're going to garnish either that money comes to us. And we could pay the landlord, our landlord. And our
Anything to
landlord
like
suffered no
more.
loss.
So I
You
suppose
see,
what I'm thinking here is that if somebody comes to me and says to me, Sean, I'd love to rent, and I think Lauren brought it up. And Lauren's got Joburg properties, and she's got then
hmm,
in Umtunzini. People want to live in the bush. And we're not talking where they want to make the a folk start now. We're just talking they bring tents. They don't want to
hmm.
build their own houses. Um, our immediate reaction in the past was, no, no, lease says no, no, no subletting. So, no, we can't do that. What we're saying now is, let's think of this. It's opening our client's property up to a different market.
Hmm.
When I say that, it means that I am making it more lettable on a long-term basis because instead of just marketing to the long-term market, I'm also now opening up my property to the short-term operators. Let's call them
Mm,
operators. So if I just said no, and if, for example, in Cape Town, if you just said no to that, you might have a problem
mm,
because there's a lot of demand for it here. Not everybody wants to own it.
mm,
And we're saying we need to look at our lease. We need to make provision for a number of things in our lease. So don't just use our normal lease. Don't just cross out
mm,
subletting. I think get Ishmael to help you add in stuff to protect your landlord because life is different.
mm,
But what you're saying is they're going to pay on a short-term basis. But if something goes wrong, we go to court, we throw the pie out the window because we're
mhm.
company to no, sorry, we're company to company.
Company to company, we're doing a
So
commercial, even individual to company.
it's fine.
Landlord's an
Because of course they're
individual.
not living there. They're not
Nobody's
living
living
there.
there.
They're using it as a
Nobody's
business.
living there.
We go there. It happens chop chop, no emotion involved. Nobody's put homeless. They're actually on the plane happy all the way back to Germany.
Mm,
And we can then go to Lekkerslap and say, hey, they owe us money. Everything that comes
mhm.
in here, the court says you must give it to me.
Yes.
But
You
that
see,
puts different light.
the other thing is, if let's say the Airbnb client moves in and doesn't move out, they've got a 3-year booking or 3-day booking, and it gets to day 4, and it gets to day 5, and it gets to day 6, and they haven't left.
Yeah, there's those people in Clifton that did that most.
Yes, and they don't want to pay.
Yes.
That would involve pie, but that's not our problem.
Yes.
Because we
And they
say
also
to our
have,
tenant, I don't care that they're not paying you, you need to pay me. And you can go and sort them out. You can launch a pie application against them. You can go
Northie,
pay the lawyers. You can do
sorry, my
everything
cleaning
you
lady
need
is
to do.
throwing dirt on my head here. Northie, careful, Mamela.
Yeah.
Yes.
So we say to our tenant, that whole issue you're having with your occupier is your issue. Good luck. Make sure my rental's paid at the end of the month.
Am I right to say, or am I wrong to say that that doesn't happen that often? Most people are
Very
flying
few and
in on a
far between.
ticket, they're flying
Mm,
out on a ticket. I mean, I don't want to be xenophobic here, but if they're coming with a visa and a ticket and they've got a return ticket to leave the
mm,
country, I think they rather go back to Germany or US people might want to come here now because they know there's lots of places here, but you got to speak Afrikaans.
mm.
Anyhow, but most tourists would be okay.
They come and then they
People who
leave.
come, but this is not only the tourist market. We've also got to
Mm,
realize, like when I go to Joburg for work,
mm.
there's that market as well. People want to
Yes.
stay in Airbnb. So what we're saying is we can be opening our client up to the short-term market. Make, I know for a fact they're going to look after us.
Mm. You see, it's a nice way of having both sides of the market.
Hmm.
It's having the security of a long-term tenant, but the benefits and the income of a short-term tenant without taking the risk of that short-term tenant, without taking the expense of that short-term tenant. Because remember, if you're doing a normal long-term letting, majority, not all, but majority of units are done unfurnished, right? If you're doing
Yes.
short term, you need to furnish. That place needs
Yes.
to have every amenity that somebody needs to enjoy their stay. So if you can outsource that essentially to your tenant to say, you furnish the place, you put it on the market, you do
You
all
meet
of
them for the
that,
keys
but
at
I'm
1 o'clock
making,
in the morning.
yeah, you take those calls, exactly. But
Yes.
I am getting a higher rental than I would have had on a normal long-term tenant. From the agent, from the audience we have today, nothing changes from your management. You are just marketing to these tenants who are going to do this particular subletting. Yes, we've
But,
got to look at the lease, make sure the clauses are in order as
mm,
to what does the subletting clause say, under what conditions it's allowed, what sort of time periods, what sort of maintenance going to
the
be
fact
done.
that they
But
run the risk
yes,
that if we evict them commercially this week, in the next 3 days or whatever happens,
mhm,
the bookings are their problem.
the bookings are their problem. They have to cancel those bookings. They need to suffer those penalties.
Mm.
Once we cancel their lease, they have no right to lease our property to anyone any longer.
Now, Isel says here that we currently have one of those and it has been running smoothly for 2 years, but we had one before where it did not work out and we struggled to get rent from a tenant because business was bad. What I'm understanding though, Isel, from that situation, what part of the country are you in as a matter of interest? Because we all think it's by the coast, but it's not always by the coast. Every place has got places that want to do Airbnb.
Yes.
Pretoria. Yeah. So what we're saying there is we just need to set the lease up correctly. But if business is bad, we still have to give the 20 business days. But the kicking out part, the eviction,
The
is a lot
eviction part.
quicker.
Yes. You see, again, if you would take the normal lease, the normal lease that you have on your book for your normal tenants, and you take out the subletting clause, and you put in allowed to do short term, perfectly fine, they're allowed to do short term. If something goes wrong, there's a lot more work that has to go in to make the proper case. But if the
Mm.
lease is set up properly and the lease says that this company signing the lease will not be in occupation, there will never be a long-term tenant. It is short-term
Uh,
variable tenants, and we've got all of those clauses. Then walking into court and showing this is a commercial lease under these terms, PI doesn't apply.
so what we're essentially talking about is a let to short let lease. A let to
Yes,
let lease. I wonder if
essentially,
TPN
yes.
is one of them.
Say again.
Do you think TPN is one of them? I'll go
I
have a look.
don't believe TPN has one. I might be wrong. I haven't looked recently. They
No,
might
I
have.
also
I'm
haven't.
doubtful.
Because I'm of the era that if somebody says, I'm just logging in there quickly. If somebody says to me, sublet, I say, but you see, that's why I met you, so you can open my eyes.
But look, a few years ago, it was also standard never, ever, ever allow subletting. Under very, very particular circumstances would you allow subletting. But now the market has changed. The market is
Yes.
moving and we need to move with the market, but we need to move cautiously. We cannot just jump 2 feet in thinking, if I do this, I'll make $1 million and I'm set. No, you've got to do it properly. You've got to look at the risk, manage the risks, and there is a definite benefit to be
So
had.
what you are saying is it's important to have a lease that
Hmm.
makes provision for this. Um,
Yes.
do you have such a thing?
I don't have one that I am using as standard.
Yeah, yeah. No,
But
well,
if people are interested, we can put one together. That's not a problem. But as it stands now, I am assisting individual landlords and agents with
is
updating their
anybody,
lease to work to this effect.
what type of lease will do if the owner is not a business and the property is a normal residential, but the tenant in the business, surely we cannot do a normal commercial lease.
No,
It's,
it's not a
from what
normal
I'm
commercial
understanding,
lease.
is that it's not a commercial lease, is it?
It's not a okay. When we say commercial
It's
lease,
not a commercial lease because
we
it's not a commercial property.
it's not a it's a residential lease with a commercial what were the word we use? It's a residential lease with a commercial founding.
Yeah, I'm trying with a commercial, it's a residential lease with a commercial termination.
Close enough. Close enough. Like I said,
Let's
it's
call it a
it's a very
short term.
unique sort of thing. It's a very
Yeah,
unique thing because I saw I think it,
I'm
hold
in there
on.
now where I see there's
Yeah, I
juristic.
see. Yes, Robin just put up the list. So it's not any one of these. It's not a holiday lease because again, a holiday lease
No, we're not
is
renting to holiday
essentially
people.
We're not renting to holiday people. We're renting to normal tenants. Yes, it's going to be a commercial entity. We prefer a commercial entity to be our tenant, but it's not a commercial. They're not running a motor mechanic shop or a wholesaler or anything along those lines.
Yeah,
It's a
no.
residential lease with subletting for short-term occupation.
Yeah, I see they have a consent to sublet, but that's also not the one we want in Robin, because we want to make this pie thing there, and we want to
Hmm.
make it clear that the person that we are letting to is not using this for residential purposes. They can't say, I need alternative accommodation, all that.
Yes.
Ishmael, I wonder if we should look at, I'm looking at you, Nick, because I can't write.
We can put look, I'm happy to if there's a market for this. As I say, I've had many clients come to me with it and I've assisted them with this. If there's a market, if members are interested in this, we can definitely look at putting something like this together.
So, so for
But
everybody just
but
looking
also
at
I don't
residential.
want to force I don't want to force agents to say start telling your landlords to move all their properties onto this platform.
Jana said, no, no, no. No, but if they want to go onto this platform, if they're keen to go onto this platform,
By all
or
means, we are
who is
definitely happy
getting a
to
lot?
assist.
Okay, my suggestion would be the following. If you are getting a lot of inquiries from people who are wanting to rent your long-term property and operate it as a short-term lease, a
Hmm.
short-term rental, a short-term whatever, if you are getting a lot of those, then this is something to consider. And I think of Lauren, and Lauren's not on this morning, but Lauren mentioned that last time. Because every time we're saying no to them, it means it's saying to us that there is a market for this. What we're saying is we shouldn't be using our normal we shouldn't be using our normal lease. We should have it adapted to make provision for things like the lessee is not residing in the premises. They're going to use it for short-term letting. They're going to furnish it. They're going to do all of those, and they are renting it commercially. It's a residential lease being rented by a company for the purposes of short-term residential, because we don't want to make it a non-residential lease, short-term residential. But what you're saying is when we go for eviction, it's not the Protection of Illegal Eviction and Occupants and Unlawful Thingies Act, because it's not mommy and daddy that are getting kicked out. Mommy and daddy are leaving by Friday in any case, and then we're grabbing the keys and they go.
Correct. I see a question here that says things can be used in normal lease with a special
Yes.
addendum. No, we would not use a special addendum because your addendum is going to be as many pages as your lease, which it's too much. A specific lease for this, an adapted lease for this is what you're looking at. Because if we were just to look at, if you pull up any normal lease, and okay, number one, we're leaving the tenant there. We're not putting in the occupiers because we don't know who they're going to be.
Mm.
We're taking out the sublet clause. We're putting in a new subletting clause that has to do with short-term letting. We're taking out the maintenance clause
Oh,
and we're
yes,
putting in
that's
a
right. They're
completely
going to be
new maintenance
responsible for
clause.
maintenance.
We're putting in a completely new maintenance clause. We're putting in a different breach clause. There's so much adapting to the lease that it is a new document. So to say to your tenant, here's our 22-page lease and here's our 12-page addendum to our 22-page lease doesn't work.
Okay. So if there is interest, I'm not going to ask you because we only have a few people on. Jan has another question. Those that are doing this, uh, Jan, I'm going to go to your first question. You must just wait there. Those that are doing this, does your landlord expect less commission? No. Why?
No, you are managing this lease to the tenant as you would have done with any tenant. The additional work being done is being done by that tenant to their occupiers. In fact, you would more than likely be getting a higher rental than you normally would have gotten, which means your commission stays the same and your landlord gets more money.
Yeah, no. So I mean, our package is still our package.
Hmm.
Remember that what we are saying to the landlord is, if you want to get into Jan, I know where you are there, but she's by some other beachfront. Um, it's not it's not the fancy one, it's the other one. Shameland, Jan, it's not the non-fancy one. Western Seaboard, the Western
Hmm.
Seaboard. Okay.
There's a
Um,
good market there as well.
exactly. So now I'm thinking there, for example, um, it could be that you're getting a lot of these inquiries because there is a good market over there. There's a guy called Robin Booth that has a business over there. I know him from Sappan,
Hmm.
and his business is let to let.
Hmm.
He works in that business. Now, Jan also says non-CPA question mark. If their annual turnover over 2 million.
Well, look, that's the norm. Remember, your CPA is divided into three. If it's if there's a natural person involved, CPA applies across the board. If it's two commercial entities with an annual turnover or asset base less than 2 million, the CPA still applies. Section 14 does not apply. If it's two commercial entities over the threshold of 2 million, the CPA doesn't apply at all. So you again have to look at who are you actually dealing with, whether the CPA is going to apply or not. But the nice thing about this is the only things in the CPA that we really need to concern ourselves with generally is, can they cancel on 20 days notice? And do we need to give them a 20-day notice of breach? So not massive changes depending on where their threshold is. Everything
But
else will still work.
the pie, we can take a whole pie and
Take
not
the
just
whole
a
pie
slice.
out. Yes,
Sonia's got a question here. We have one landlord that has no, Sonia, I think you mean now allowed a tenant to sublet. So if we need a specific lease for that, I will be interested. Are they those, Sonia, subletting via Airbnb, Slap, whatever those ones are? Because I think that's an important thing.
that's a
In other
big.
words,
If it's
they
if the
sublet them
tenant,
short term.
yeah, if the
Oh,
tenant
but
is
wait.
simply subletting,
Oh, no, they're
if
doing it themselves. Then
if
I
they
think you're
simply subletting to someone and the landlord's okay with that, a normal addendum will count.
then the normal lease is fine.
Normal lease is fine, and you do an addendum or you change that particular clause saying subletting is allowed.
What
It's
what
rather
what
simple.
just to be clarified here, Ishmael owns a property. I've decided I want to start an Airbnb business. I don't want those people in my house. Um, I don't have money to buy a property. So I say I've
Mm,
saved some money. I'm going to pay a year up front. You know most how that makes everybody
mm,
Democrat. They're all going to sign me up. I'm going to pay a year up front. But I'm going to go to the landlord and I'm going to say, I want to be able to put this property on Airbnb and rent out short term.
mm.
That's what we're talking about here. I
Yes,
want to run a business out of that. It's not that I'm also living at the property. We're not talking
mm,
about that. I want to run
correct,
a business out of it. Um,
correct.
that's what we're talking about.
Mm.
If
Okay,
anybody has any
Sean, can we
questions,
do another 7 minutes and then
no,
I've got to log
I
off.
think we're going to wrap up because I think
Mm,
it's a concept one needs to get to settle in the mind.
mm. Indeed, indeed.
But
So
I'm thinking, Jan, I'm thinking your world, them Bloberg people and that sort of area, a lot of people. Um, Anybody who's fortunately in the Atlantic seaboard. Where was that other lady? Isel says Pretoria. Um, uh, Robin, if I'm correct, you're near the airport place. And I know the country so well now. Um,
mm,
Places where there's airports is a good place because people want to get in, stay close to the airport, especially us in Gauteng. We want to know that we can get out quickly when the world moves. Um, yeah, I'm thinking Cape Town people. Who gets a lot of these sorts of queries? Oh,
like I
Randburg,
said,
yeah.
I've got a substantial amount of clients that come to me with this. Not necessarily because they're getting the queries, but they come to me with this because they see the potential in the market and they want to move into the market.
Yes.
And as I say, when I speak to them, I'm saying to them exactly what I'm saying here now. It is a good market to be in, but you have to commit to the market completely, or you find someone who's already committed to the market and then we move it over to them. You continue getting your set rental every month and they take the risk.
Yes.
So as a, it's
And
another
your risk
bullet in
is
the
lower.
chamber for us as agents in the normal market to go to the market with, in
Yeah, and what we're
without
saying
having to
is,
pivot the entire portfolio into something new.
I mean, essentially what we're saying is 2 weeks ago, if somebody came to me and said to me, listen, yeah, I'm interested in renting that property, but I want permission to rent it out short term. My
Hmm.
immediate reaction would have been, hell no. Didn't you know in
Hmm.
estate agent school, we learn not to deal with people like you because it causes problems. But now we're saying, wait, the world has changed.
Hmm.
We might be able to get a higher deposit. We might be able to outsource all the maintenance to them. There's already an advantage. Somebody was talking about the percentages. We're
Hmm.
outsourcing the maintenance to them. Um, and we might be able to charge a little bit more rental because they're going to be running a business and if they do it right, making a killing.
Yeah.
And when we're tired of them, or when the relationship ends, unfortunately,
Hmm.
like we can wave goodbye a lot quicker.
Yes.
And do things,
Correct.
but we can garnish their lacquer slabs.
Yes.
Can be a lot of advantages for the landlord.
So you see, that's again why we're not doing a simple addendum to the lease, because in the lease, we get to say to them, these are the platforms you can use. So when they put down Lekkerslaap over there, we think, oh, fantastic. Now we know we can go ask Lekkerslaap if there's any money sitting there.
Ah,
Hmm. So we don't have to
uh,
guess. And also
Ishmael,
nothing stops us from logging onto Lekkerslaap and seeing if our property is there and if it's available for the next 3 weeks. And then we know there's money coming in and we go chase after that money.
um, Jan, you ask a question which I forgot. I was meant to
Hmm.
contact Elise yesterday. I will get back to you on that. I wanted to try and get her here, but then I noticed that she was cavorting with the Property Investors Network at the Investor of the Year something. So I thought it wouldn't be an opportune time to contact her. I
Hmm.
can see no reason why she wouldn't. Okay. I can see no reason why Expello wouldn't, because in the end, it's a normal commercial lease. And to be
Mhm.
honest, the eviction part is a lot easier on their side. Do you know Ishmael? Because you work for them. Have
I
you?
don't see, I haven't spoken to Elise about this. I don't see why they wouldn't cover it because, okay, maybe because it's not purely residential, it's
Oh, but no, they
slightly
do
commercial.
commercial. They do
But
commercial now.
yeah, but I don't see why they wouldn't cover it because in fact it would be it's an easier application for the attorneys to run. It's an easier application for them to manage. And
Yes.
yeah, I doubt that they would turn this down.
Jan, I'll speak to Elise about that, but I don't see any reason why. I just couldn't contact her yesterday because she was having fun with the investors in a very fancy place in Joburg.
We're
Um,
not jealous.
no, we're not jealous at all. We've got fancy places too, and I'm enjoying the wind with all the windows and doors closed. I mean, look at my hair. You can see it's just a yeah, and I'm all anyhow. Ladies and gentlemen, I think that's where we're going to wrap it up. Thank you so much, Ishmael. I will
Always a
talk to
pleasure.
Elise. I will get back to everybody. It's something to think of. It's something to think of.
Hmm.
Certainly something to think of that I wasn't thinking of. But for now, we're going to bid you adieu. We're going to see you. Hello, Yasmin. Oh, I'm glad you joined us. Oh, I like this Yasmin lady. Oh, I hope it's a lady. I'm confused. Um, I like it. We've got the new members. I don't know the Sydneys. I think it's Sydney. Anyhow. Um, Bye for now, everybody. I will say we early December
December.
um is our last one, but I'll send out the information and we'll get the recording of this one out. I'm going to also
Okay.
sort of make some notes based on this because this is all new to all of us, all to me. Okay, dokie.
Okay.
Thanks so much,
All right.
Ismail.
Thank you,
Have
everybody.
a good day
Goodbye.
and have a good weekend.
Bye bye.
Bye.